Hi everyone. What is a victim? Well, a victim is a person, living or dead, who has experienced a circumstance, either within or without their control. And you think, well, gee, that's like seriously broad. And it is seriously broad. So I'm not going to focus on the victim who passes due to whichever event, because ostensibly I'm alive, and ostensibly so are you. So for the sake of this video, the victim survived. And you think, well, what did they survive? I don't know. What did you survive? Did you survive your childhood? And you say, well, yeah, I'd survived my childhood. It was fine. We played, we learned, we did what we had to do. Okay. Were you a victim of your childhood? And you may say no. You may also say yes. Yes, I was a victim of my childhood. And a lot of people would say, well, what do you mean? What do you mean you were a victim of your childhood? Well, first of all, you had no control. At all. None. You literally were forced to do and be whatever your guardians chose you to do or be. Full stop. You were either placed into a school and educated or not. You may or may not have liked it. You may or may not have learned. You may or may not have been bullied. You may or may not have been a victim. You may actually have had a really peachy childhood. But you may not. So, by that very broad definition, because it is broad, you can be a victim to natural disasters, man-made disasters, circumstances, people, accidents. You can be a victim to all of them. They may or may not be traumatic. I'd hope they're not traumatic. Unfortunately, they normally are. So, I almost think you are a victim to life. Because life, haven't you heard it said, oh, life's like that. Life is full of ups and downs. So, from that, a victim is ridiculously broad, because it may or may not have been traumatic. For the sake of this, we'll assume it's traumatic. We'll assume it was something horrific. Narcissism, parental abuse, sibling abuse, teacher abuse, bullies, corporate abuse, police brutality. Oh, the list is endless. The list is endless. Narcissists. There are so many narcissistic people out there. They really are out there. There are a lot of them. Are you a victim to every single narcissist you come across? No. Only those who perceive you as weak, or who perceive you as a challenge. if you're a challenge to a narcissist, you toast. You toast. Because they will bend over backwards to break you. They really will. It does, of course, depend on whether they're a lazy narcissist or not. Depends on how overinflated their ego is, how vast their greed is. But there are a lot of sociopathic people out there, and I use the term sociopathic because all narcissists are sociopathic. Now, please don't get me wrong. Everybody has narcissistic tendencies. Not everybody is a narcissist. Everybody manipulates people. Not only narcissists, but narcissists are particularly good at it, among other things. So, what are you a victim to? Think about it. Or what were you a victim to? You know, I look back at my childhood and I always just thought, well, gee, you know, we just did what we had to do and yeah, whatever. Well, yeah, I was date raped. I was sexually grabbed when I was 8 or 9 years old by an arbitrary stranger on the street. I was mugged in the street as a young adult. I was hijacked. I was burgled. I was robbed. I was physically beaten. I lived with bullies. I was bankrupted by a narcissist, and he really is a narcissist. I think a hospital full of narcissists would love to study how that sick mind works. So, yeah, I have been a victim. I've been in car accidents where I was a passenger. I've witnessed accidents. I've witnessed disasters. Do you know that you can get post-traumatic stress disorder from watching a disaster, reading about it? They've proven it. You can actually develop PTSD from watching a traumatic event where you aren't even involved. You are merely watching it as an after effect or hearing about it after the event. So what are you a victim to? What were you a victim to? And is there such a thing as a perpetual victim? Well, yeah, I suppose there are. It would depend on your perception of what happens and how it happens and when it happens. So what is a victim? Well, a victim is an innocent person who has some atrocity committed to them. They are a victim of a crime. They're a victim of wickedness. They're a victim of nastiness. It may or may not be physical. I mean, it could even be a victim of cybercrime. You could have your identity stolen. You could have your bank accounts cleaned out by a scam and become a victim. You read and hear of all these Ponzi schemes where people invest their life savings and become a victim to a Ponzi scheme, and they literally lose everything. So that is what a victim is. Do all victims survive? No. Some victims are terminated during the travesty. You know, think of an armed robbery, a bank robbery, a hijacking. Some victims self-terminate because they can't live with it. And probably by far, most victims survive. And just because you're a survivor doesn't mean you weren't a victim. So what is victim shaming? Well, victim shaming comes in various shapes and sizes. One of them is where if you say, I was a victim to crime, somebody talks over you and says, you're a survivor, you weren't a victim. No, you were a victim. The fact that you survived the crime does not mean you were not a victim to it. So by revoking your victim's status to an event, the person who revokes it minimizes the event, thereby minimizing your perception of the event, thereby invalidating your feelings about the event, thereby invalidating you. What else? Well, sorry, itchy nose. We have a typical gaslighting stint from a narcissist, where the narcissist will turn around to their victim, who they have done some atrocity to, and believe me, they have done it. And they will say, oh, stop playing the victim. And that is called gaslighting. That is victim shaming. Because you can't possibly be a victim because this oh so great, oh so wonderful narcissist never did anything to you. You're imagining it. You dreaming. It never happened. No, no, no. No, no, no. It never happened. Stop playing the victim. You're not playing a victim. You are a victim to a narcissist. You are. What you think they did, they did. They did it. And they did it knowing full well they were doing it. They did it with exactly what malicious intent you think they were using. They were doing it with that intent. If you think they were trying to destroy you, they were. If you believe you're a victim to a narcissist, you were or are. If what you think happened, it happened. If your abuser says, stop playing the victim, take it as validation that what happened, and that they are trying to negate it. They are trying to make you not know what the truth is. If you've never been taken on or taken out by a narcissist, you have no idea what it feels like to no longer know what is true and what is real. And anybody who has the cheek to tell you that you're not a victim to a narcissist has never experienced it. They have never experienced it. Were you sitting there and you thinking, I'm going mad. I'm sure that happened. They are so good at their manipulations and lying that you doubt yourself. So, yeah, narcissist victim shame. by saying, stop playing the victim. Then, of course, you have those would-be do-gooders who say, oh, move on, let it go. You know what? Tell those people who haven't experienced what you've just experienced. Tell that person to go and have a limb amputated and then to get over it. Just move on. If you've been a victim to something and somebody tells you, oh, just let it go, get away from that person. Do not stay around that person. They do not care about you. They are not interested in what happened to you. They don't care. Because you don't just get over it, whatever it is. Yes, if you're a 12-year-old boy or girl and you've just had the love of your life break up with you and someone turns around and says, oh, get over it. Really, it's a childhood crush. When you're an adult and you've been through something that is ludicrously traumatic for you, nobody has the right to tell you to get over it. Let it go. Nobody. They are victim shaming. They are making you feel as if you are not enough because you cannot move on. Because you cannot just let it go. That is victim shaming. You say, well, how can I make such a broad statement? Well, what traumas have you been through? You think of the Vietnam vets, the people in Gaza, the people in Russia, Ukraine. And don't get it wrong, the Russian-Ukraine war is impacting Russia and Ukrainians as citizens. The conflict in Palestine and Israel is affecting Palestinians and Israelis. The conflict in Sudan, the never-ending conflict in Sudan, is impacting everybody who is involved in it. Think about the Russian-Ukrainian war. We are all a victim to it. You're saying, well, no, you're nowhere near it. You're sitting at the tip of Africa. Yeah. I am. I am. I have a friend who is Russian. He has family in the Ukraine. He has family in South Africa. It impacts everybody. So when someone says to you, oh, it's not so bad, just move on. There are plenty of fish in the sea. Oh, you know, it was just an accident. You can always buy another car. At least you didn't die. All of those statements are minimizing you. Listen to that. They are minimizing you. Because every experience you have, you perceive it in your own manner. You look at what happens in your life from your own perspective. You process it from your own experiences, your own logic, your own brain, your own heart, your own psychological capacity, your own mind. Nobody experiences any event exactly the same way as you do. You know, if you speak to people who've been in a concert shooting or a school shooting, as they call them, massacres, and you ask for witness testimony, you very seldom get two witnesses who can repeat the event in exactly the same way. There is always something slightly off, slightly different. Because we all perceive things from our own mind, our own perception. So anybody who says, "Oh, it wasn't so bad," it wasn't. It was only a car accident. At least nobody got injured. Yeah, okay, I didn't get injured, but I can't get the sound of the car crashing and smashing out of my head. So yeah, the car's gone. And I'm okay. Am I? Oh wait, I was previously in a nasty incident where there was loud banging and crashing, and it's triggered me. It's reactivated a post-traumatic stress. But yeah, no, you're right. Nobody was injured. And we all do it. We all victim shame. At least nobody was killed. Now, when I was hijacked, my favorite was, well, the car was giving me problems anyway. I wouldn't have been able to sell it. Did it make the hijacking any less of a hijacking? Well, I don't know. Having 3 men poking a gun in your face while they're stealing your vehicle by force. No, just get over it. Move on. Let it go. And then you go to the police station, and the police behave as if you hijacked yourself. They treat you as if you're just a number. And then your insurance company does the same because they don't want to pay. But yeah, nobody was injured. At least you didn't get shot. At least you didn't lose a limb. Every trauma kills a piece of us. Something dies. Something. Some part of us. It could be a piece of innocence. It could be that glimmer of hope. It could be that childlike invincibility that we live with. And hey, it might not die. It might just get injured. It might hide. It might get too scared to voice itself. It might become a figment of what it could have been had it not been a victim of a hijacking, a robbery, a rape, a brutal beat-up, verbal abuse, mental abuse. It could have been phenomenal had it not been a victim of some crime, whether it be a criminal crime or just a regular against humanity type of crime. and by that I'm referring to bullies. It's actually a crime that we have bullies who are allowed to roam free on this planet. And there's so many of them. There are so many of them. You know, not all men are bullies. Not all women are bullies. Not all English are bullies. Not all Afrikaans are bullies. Not all Lebanese are bullies. And so on. But there are bullies out there. And if they happen to be bigger than you, if they happen to be senior to you in any aspect, they will bully you. They will exert their influence and power over you because they can. You think of the boss, where you work, the boss, the one that people tiptoe around because they can fire you at the drop of a hat. You know, I had a boss once who launched himself over a conference table at me. And when I sent him a letter telling him I objected to his behavior, he attacked me in the letter. He, of course, gave me a case that I could take up to the human resource portion of the government. But he was a bully. People tiptoed around him. People were a victim to him. Nobody did anything that might upset him. People lost their individuality because of him. And yes, he was a male. Have I had female bullies? Oh yes. Oh yes. One of my very first bosses was a female. She was a nasty piece of work. I learned from her that every morning, if I gave her some stupid little compliment, she would behave like a human being for a couple of hours. So I would say something like, "Oh, Julie, your hair looks so pretty today." Or, "Gosh, that color really suits you." And I would be as false as all hell, because I knew that for 2 or 3 hours, I wouldn't have the bitch from hell breathing down on me, bickering at me, moaning at me, telling me how pathetic and useless I was, for no other reason than that she was a bully. So, don't get me wrong, bullies come in all shapes and sizes. Are you a victim? Yeah. So what about a survivor? Are all victims survivors? No. Some victims die. Some victims die, either at their own hand or at the hand of the event that created the victim. So if someone says to you, "Oh, you're not a victim, you're a survivor," yeah, you survived. You did. You did survive. But you're not the same person you were before that event. You survived the event. You're not the same person. And it doesn't matter how minute the event was in the minds of others. That event will shape you for the rest of your life. So yes, you survived. And you are a survivor. But you were a victim. You may not be trapped as a victim. You may not behave with a victim mentality. So what is a victim mentality? Well, the victim mentality is, nothing ever works for me. I'm a complete screw-up. Nothing will ever go right. Everything always goes wrong. Everything is always wrong. It is not a survivor of a trauma. It is not a survivor or a victim of an event. It is a mentality. It's almost a psychological disorder. Woe is me. Psychological disorder. If you are a victim, it does not mean you have victim mentality. You may have victim mentality if you go into a similar situation. And what would that be? Well, if you learned as a very small child that if someone is coming at you with their fist and you cower in a corner, you're safe, you will do it again. Your brain will do it again. Because it is safe. If you learn that screaming at the top of your lungs as a child when a fist was coming at your face, you learned that a neighbor would come running when you screamed. When a fist is coming at your face, you will scream. It becomes a reflex. It becomes a part of you. Yes, you survived. You will always have been a victim to something, and that something will change you forever. You will never be the person you were before the event. You won't. And I don't care what any psychological text says. I don't care what any of the learned professionals say. Even if a tiny, tiny little part of you changes, you will never be the same person again. You know, you think of a minor injury where you get a nick on your cheek and it leaves a scar. Will you ever look the same again? I'm listening. No. You will always have a scar on your face. You will always know where that scar came from, unless your mind blocks it out. And it will have had to have been a serious trauma for that. Our minds do these things. So what is victim shaming? Victim shaming is minimizing the trauma that you perceive you have been through by an external party, normally the abuser, or another party who wants to abuse you. Normal people don't run around victim shaming other normal people. Normal people will show empathy or sympathy. Abusers victim shame. Abusers tell you to, oh, just move on. Oh, let it go. And you think, well, but that person didn't do that to me. And I'll tell you, that person, you think they're your friend. You go places with them. Something happens. And you try and speak about it because it's really bothering you. And that friend hears you speaking about it and feels as if all the attention is being taken off them. And within a day or two, they will be saying, oh, just get over it. Oh, just move on. Let it go. because they want the focus and attention to be on them. That is an abuser. It doesn't matter what anyone says. That is an abuser. You don't get professionals who turn around and say, oh, just move on. Get over it. You don't just get over abuse. You don't. You don't just get over trauma. Sometimes you never get over it. Sometimes you never let it go. Sometimes you can't move on. So, victim shaming comes from an abuser. Even if that abuser is disguised as a loving parent, a caring friend, a sibling, sometimes even a spouse. That victim shaming is from an abuser. They may not be abusing you right now, but they are an abuser. I'm willing to guarantee it. I'm actually willing to guarantee it, because in my experience, from my perspective, all the people I have known who have said, just get over it, let it go, and, oh, move on. You seem to be stuck. All of those people proved that they were abusers in some shape, form, or size. Either they were trying to get something from me, they were using me for something, or they actually were trying to abuse me themselves. Take it or leave it. As I've said, this is my opinion. Once you've experienced a traumatic event and you've survived it, you are a victim of that event. You are a victim of that circumstance. You may or may not survive it. There is a part of you that will be forever changed because of that event. Anyway, have a great day now.